Aquis quoted Truspine Technologies, Epicode TSP, is both owner and developer of 3 uniquely disruptive technologies to revolutionize the spinal stabilization market. The company recently appointed a new board following a period of transition, and I'm joined today by recently appointed Chairman Geoff Miller to tell us all. Good morning, Geoff. How are you today?
Morning, Alan. Very good.
Excellent. So, Geoff, you're now 3 months into the new job as chairman, and of course, part of that role has been to re-establish regular contact with investors and shareholders. Now, today's AGM, of course, provided a great opportunity to do that. Your statement points out that you've also taken on a significant proportion of the responsibilities of the former chief executive, Lawrence Strauss. Can you elaborate on what that means?
Sure. So I joined the board as chairman to oversee the strategy of the company. With Lawrence's departure, that's a more hands-on role now to actually ensure that the strategy is implemented as well as overseen. Whilst Samuel Ogunzalu, who joined the board at the same time as me, who has a medtech background, is now taking charge of the commercial and technical side of the business.
Okay, excellent. You've also established a good working relationship with Frank Boehm, of course, the inventor of the IP that underlies the Truspine offering. Could you tell us how you expect the relationship with Frank to develop and whether he'll play a greater role in the company going forward?
Sure. So Frank is somebody who is an essential part of the value of the business, and it was important to actually maximize the value for shareholders that we established an agreement which we signed a few weeks ago to cooperate in developing the IP of the business. And Frank and I have continued to discuss the best ways to do that. I think that he will be taking an active role in the development of the business, although it's a slightly different role to that of an executive. It very much reflects that he is the inventor of the IP of the business, but it's not his responsibility to then take it through to commercialization, but he's an essential advisor to us in how best to do that.
I understand. Okay. Well, Geoff, we've now got some questions directly from investors and shareholders that have come through the website and, of course, the new interactive website that you've launched today. Firstly, can you clarify the position regarding the IP?
Sure. So I think it's fair to say that the company has not exactly covered itself in glory in terms of managing its IP until now. And that's part of the reason why the shares had performed so poorly in the past. What we're looking to do now is to make sure that there is absolutely no question over the IP of the business that is left in the market. It will take time to reassure people that what has been said by the company about the IP historically is accurate. I'm comfortable that the way in which it's been presented is accurate, but I'm certain that there will still be questions out there for a little while yet, but we will do everything we can to provide as much reassurance as we possibly can that this is a business which has a very resilient IP portfolio. The fact that we're working with Frank proactively now to ensure that there are no question marks in the future, I think will go a long way to answering those queries that have been put out by shareholders.
Understand. Well, that's very, very reassuring to hear as well, I'm sure. You also said today in the AGM statement that advanced discussions are currently underway with several potential strategic partners. Where are you with these?
The discussions that we're having fall into two different groups. There are those discussions with distributors and manufacturers in various jurisdictions around the world, and those will be about how we best commercialize the product. At the same time, we're having some strategic discussions with potential partners that have complementary products that could add value both to us and to them, as to whether working together would make sense as we move forward. So I would hope that we will be able to talk in concrete terms about some of these strategic partnerships in the months to come.
Good to hear. Good to hear. On to the FDA. We've got a couple of questions about the FDA. Firstly, has the application been made to the FDA? And also, why are we not hearing any more information about the FDA process?
So the FDA application went in July of last year. I have seen a full copy of the application, so any suggestions that there was no application, which I've seen from one or two people, is completely incorrect. In terms of the position at the moment, I've spent the last 30 odd years working with various regulators in various industries, and one thing which I know annoys regulators more than anything is companies speculating about where they are in the regulatory approval process. I think it's much better that we don't provide a running commentary on exactly where we think we are within the regulatory process. We are in ongoing discussions with the FDA. We're hopeful that we will get a decision from them in the reasonably near future, but we don't want to put any sort of timescale on that process. We'd rather get it right than try to say that we're going to get it within a certain time period and end up upsetting the FDA and actually shooting ourselves in the foot.
Understood. Thank you for clarifying that. Most recently, Truspine announced that Barry Saunders had converted his loan note at 1.5p. Could you provide some clarification on that, and also provide an overview of the shareholders currently in the business, and of course your own shareholding too?
Yeah, so Barry had a loan that he had provided to the company in the early part of last year, and he had a charge over the assets of the company as a result of that loan. When I joined the board at the end of February, I started discussions with Barry about exchanging that loan and removing the charge over the company in exchange for a convertible loan, which we agreed shortly before the 22 AGM, which we held towards the end of March. And at that time, the share price was less than half the 1.5p conversion price. And I know that there were shares available in the market at the time at 0.6p, 0.75p, because I bought some. So at the time, Barry agreed to exchange his loan and charge over the company for a convertible, which he has now requested, and the company has accepted his request to convert it into equity in the company. So he owns a little under 10% of the company. I own currently about 7% of the company. However, I also have a convertible loan. When that is converted, my holding will be a little over 10% of the company at just under 22 million shares. I've invested just under £340,000 in the business over the past year, of which 295,000 has been in placings by the company. The rest has been shares that I bought in the secondary market. So my average in price is just under 1.6p a share. Apart from that, we have Oberon with a similar shareholding to myself. They're slightly larger than I am, and then other than Barry, we have a couple of other shareholders who are slightly smaller in size, but all our significant shareholders are shown on the website. There have been suggestions that there are some hidden shareholders out there that somehow influence the company. I've been through the share register with a fine-tooth comb, and there are no large shareholders that we haven't fully disclosed. So I'm comfortable that all of the shareholders above 3% are shareholders that we have identified.
Thank you for clarifying that, Geoff. That will be a source of relief, I'm sure, to many. But we touched on this earlier, but when you were appointed as chairman, both Sam Ogunsalu and Victoria Senna were appointed as non-exec directors. Can you elaborate a little more on how the board will operate going forward, and also whether you've got plans to appoint additional board members?
So going forward, as I mentioned earlier, Sam and I will be taking a more hands-on role than we were originally planning. But Victoria will be, as the senior independent non-executive director, she will be leading the independent directors, where we also have Nick Patel and Tim Evans, who are already non-exec directors. She will chair the audit committee, while Sam will chair the remuneration committee. I'm very keen to ensure that we have robust corporate governance and proper independence within the board, which is why I was very keen for Victoria to come on board. In terms of further directors, at the moment, we wouldn't envisage it increasing the size of the board. I think it's the right sort of size for a company at this stage. I think as we move through the process of moving towards commercialization of the products, it's inevitable that we will need to strengthen the executive team, but we wouldn't want to do so at this stage. If we do add further executives, it may be that we have one or two further people join the board, but at the moment we've got no present plans to change the size of the board. Okay,
thank you. We have a couple of additional questions from investors and shareholders. AIM-listed Vela Technologies are also a shareholder. Can you explain what happened when Vela invested into Truspine?
Sure, and I think this is something where there was probably some unfortunate administrative issues at the time that Vela invested, which caused some confusion. Vela was part of a £700,000 placing in the year before last. It was a placing at 5p, of which they put in £300,000. So they put £300,000 into the company. They own 6 million shares. So they're currently about a 4% shareholder in the company. They did receive some warrants as well at a higher exercise price. Those warrants, together with some other warrants which others held at prices significantly above the current share price, the warrant holders agreed to surrender those warrants back in March in order that we had the headroom to be able to put the monies in that myself and other shareholders put in, just over £400,000 back in March, around the time of the AGM. now that we have the authority to issue further shares, those warrants will be reissued. So they will also be warrant holders, albeit that those warrants will be at a price significantly above the current share price.
That's good to hear. Thank you for clarifying that. A question about Mike Unwin. What is his position or role within the company? Does he just run the email system, or does he do more than that?
Yes, Mike has been, I think, the unfortunate subject of much speculation, and I don't think much of it has been informed in any way. He was somebody that was an integral part of founding the business prior to its admission to Aquis. He doesn't have any role within the company today. He has no influence over the company other than as a supportive shareholder. He was involved with some of the IT historically, where he'd helped set things up in the first place. As we've moved to our new domain name, truspinetech.com, he has no role to play in that either. So where people see him as some sort of eminence grise behind the scenes running everything, he really has nothing day to day to do with the company.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Final question. There are some queries on your LinkedIn bio. Did you really go to college at 8 years of age?
Yes, this was one of the more bizarre claims to come up on bulletin boards. I went to a school called Eltham College. So I went to a college at 8 years old, but I didn't go to a university at 8 years old. So yes, I spent 10 years at Eltham College.
Eltham College. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, so before we wrap up, Geoff, can we just get a flavour of likely value inflection points that shareholders and investors can expect from the board and Truspine in the coming weeks and months?
Yes, certainly. So I think how I would see the company moving forward is, rather than viewing this simply as a binary outcome that we either receive regulatory approval or we don't receive regulatory approval, I think this is more of an evolutionary story, that we will be building a series of strategic partnerships. We will be looking to build a portfolio of approvals that we'll be looking to get for a variety of products in a variety of jurisdictions. And that will mean that we would expect to have a series of announcements over an extended period, rather than being something where there's nothing and then there is an announcement. Because I think that's far more beneficial to a company which does have a quote, because what investors need to know, to use a horrible management phrase, they're being taken on a journey, and they need to know that they are still on the journey. If you try to make this just a very binary outcome, then what you end up with is a whole bunch of investors who are completely in the dark, and then you suddenly throw them the news that you've got FDA approval, where in reality that's just one milestone along a very long road. And what we need to do is to get people to understand that actually there's a whole bunch of work that we need to do to build a platform to enable us to be able to exploit those approvals as they come through. And an approval will just be a step along the road. It doesn't mean that the business is suddenly transformed. It just means that we've made a little bit more progress to where we want to get to in the end.
Well, Geoff, we wish you and the new board every success as you take Truspine forward. Geoff Miller, Chairman of Truspine Technologies, many thanks for joining us today.
Attention, please.
Thank you.
The public address